Hello, good evening. Thanks for inviting me along. At short notice, it has to be said, we're not a social innovation or enterprise, but hopefully I think what we do is has aspects of social innovation within it. What we do is we embed artists in communities all over Scotland and all over the world. We call ourselves a theatre without walls because we don't have a building and a stage where we put shows on. We find the spaces and the audiences that are going to listen to the stories, and we involve participants in finding and telling their stories. Some statistics. We've been going for 10 years. A lot of people think a national theatre's been around for hundreds of years. It's only, well, it's not quite 10 years, 10 years in February. In that time, we've produced over 200 shows and played to approaching 2 million people. 250,000 of them have been participants in our projects. The projects, I'm saying, are big, daunting projects quite often because we're asked as a national company to come in and sometimes take over cities, sometimes take over the whole, for an example, the whole archipelago of Shetland. We did a project. And here are some of the examples. In Fife, we worked with the local authority and a number of partners there, where Fife was moving from a post-industrial era into one that was more retail and service industry. But you had to win the hearts and minds of the people there to be able to make that transformation. We did a thing called 9900, where we toured a number of interventions into places with high footfall, like these telephone boxes, where we were asking people 20 questions and they would answer them honestly, and we would take their responses and feed that back to them as a piece of theatre. In Aberdeen, again, a place that was in transition, they have the largest amount of prohibitive signs per head of population. And we went to school kids and we asked them, what would you do? What would you write on these signs? And we made an installation on a hill in Aberdeen, which was fantastic. Jump was, we worked with young boys who were at risk or of social exclusion and difficult at schools, and had a lack of role models in schools and society, and we used parkour to engage them, and that helped with community safety, reduction in crime and things. I mentioned Shetland. They were in the midst of, well, you know that Sullenvoe is up there, but they're looking at renewables, and again they had to win the hearts and minds of the people who work in that industry, so we toured people around in cars exploring that conundrum. The Tin Forest was a beautiful children's book that we reimagined as a piece of theatre that told how we recycle our stories and our past, and we did it as part of the Commonwealth. Cultural exchange is a really, really important part of what we do, not just in Scotland, but across the world, so that we are raising our heads and not just looking inwards. We're looking for examples of how we engage culturally across the world, because some of the examples are found elsewhere. We are working with different sectors. So in Dundee, we created an app that is a game that you circumnavigate the city whilst exploring its past. Internationally, this is an example of us working in Kingston, Jamaica, in the yards, where again there's extreme poverty, and we were using and sharing some of our models so that they can use the models as a social enterprise in Jamaica. In Philadelphia, which is very different from Jamaica, they are much richer resource there, but interested in our models again, so that they can build socially enterprising connections with communities out there through the engagement in theatre and the sharing of stories. Yuva Ekta are a company that work with rag pickers in India, in Delhi, and we invited them to Scotland and worked with them again to tackle challenges and problems in Derry. We work rurally across Scotland, anywhere that anybody wants us to go, because we don't have walls and a stage. We will go to these places and try and find an innovative way of being able to reflect on that community and find the ways that we can transform the way that we think about it. We work in collaboration with a number of other agencies, and Scottish Books Trust is one of them. The use of literature in all sorts of circumstances is one that we connected to. This is a socially enterprising artist who cuts hair and collects stories and then feeds them back through the window. In Aberdeen, they had a failed bid for the the UK City of Culture because they're a city of commerce. They want to be able to change that in a really intrinsic way with their community. So we're now working with them to make that work. In Dundee, it's the Centre for Innovation in Gaming, and we're working with Go Ultra Low, and there's an ambition to turn Dundee into a zero-carbon transport system. But to do that, you have to make the whole city work around that. And we're looking at theatre and gaming as a paradigm to be able to make that happen. New building right next door. You'll see it out there. Again, we're very eco-conscious, but we're also looking at ways that regeneration, and this is not just in Glasgow, it's everywhere we go, that we can use culture to engage people in those ideas. And everywhere we go, we like to put legacy as an intrinsic part of what it is that we do, so that we're hearing things and we're able to disseminate that voice to as many networks and cross-collaborative ways of approaching it. Thank you very much.